In the crimson desert of Edom, where the wind howls like an ancient hymn, three shadowy figures are hidden behind the pages of genealogy. Adah, Oholibamah, and Basemath, the wives of Esau. Their names merely flicker in the Bible, yet their hearts blaze brightly at the crossroads of faith and destiny. Why have their stories been veiled in obscurity? Can courage and wisdom alter the course of fate? Today we lift the curtain of history, tracing a journey where grace meets divine justice, guiding us through the darkness of the wilderness. If you yearn for tales of faith and redemption, hit that subscribe button, for this stirring journey begins right now. The son of Canaan, sharp as a sword, sweeps blinding streaks across the scorched land, where three women quietly build their lives amid tense, faded silver by time. Adah, daughter of a Hittite chieftain, grew up to the clang of iron on iron, pride etched into her shoulders like unscarred armor. Oholibamah, granddaughter of the Seir tribe, hears the breath of hidden springs, reading the signs of bird wings across a blazing golden sky. Basemath, sister of Nebaioth, hides a heart ablaze with faith, patiently seeking the light of grace in the chaotic sands of the tribe. They became Esau's wives just as history split in two. The sacred promise God gave to Israel shines radiant over Jacob's life, the cunning brother who traded a bowl of red stew for the birthright, while Esau, the rugged hunter, swallows the bitter taste of memory. His tents rise on gray rocky slopes, his herds spread across the valley, but his pride bleeds nightly. By the hearth, the three wives share their tasks, bearing both love and the scrutinizing gaze of Isaac's household. At night, they hear servants whisper of the blessing that has left Esau. By morning, they wonder if fate has reserved a place for their names. One parched afternoon, the wind shifts, carrying a strange heat. From the west, a pillar of dust swirls high, then spreads like a wave, signaling a Hittite war band marching to settle a blood debt, accusing Esau of breaking an ancient pact. In that moment, memories of old fortresses flood Adah's heart. Oholibamah feels the earth tremble. Basemath sees her soul plunge into a vow. Red winds lash the tent walls. Steel blades glint. Children cling to their mothers. Elders pray for mercy. The three wives gather their courage, knowing their power is just enough to nurture a spark of hope. At midnight, Oholibamah dreams of tents ablaze yet unconsumed. Waking, she presses her ear to the sand, hearing distant war drums. Basemath kneels by an oil lamp, begging the Almighty to open a path through the storm. Meanwhile, Adah ties a red warrior's band around her wrist, pacing the camp's perimeter, checking each wooden stake, measuring every defensive gap and every possible path to negotiation. The next dawn, the Hittites encamp in the dry valley, their black eagle banners fanning the burning air. Esau, skilled at hunting beasts, falters before men armed with spears. That gap grants the three wives their moment. Oholibamah rallies the women to hide food, water, and a few young goats in eastern caves where a secret spring never dries. Basemath burns fragrant resin on the altar, letting pure scents rise with the wind to carry faith skyward. Adah inspects the wooden barricades, resolving to meet her former chieftain to grasp at fragile peace. The following afternoon, a whirlwind raises a blinding sand wall between the camps. Tents tremble, red dust coats dry throats. Esau's men fall silent, listening to dust beat like drums on goatskin. The three wives stand paces apart, yet their wills merge into a single mighty current, knowing the decisive hour has come. In each woman's chest, a fire ignites to turn silence into words, to transform a forgotten story into a new chapter. The sunset stains the desert red, illuminating the ancestral covenant stone resting in a wooden chest. Basemath lays her hand on the stone's carved deer and doves, feeling her heartbeat blend with ancient etchings. Oholibama unfurls a parchment of dreams, sensing the words glow brighter than the fading light. Ada grips a dagger hilt carved with a wolf, recalling her father's words. Courage lies not in shouts, but in steps that dare to advance. The dust column fades, revealing Hittite warriors under torchlight. Esau's camp lights oil lamps, their golden glow framing three figures advancing to the valley's midpoint. Each step sinks into the sand as if it would swallow their tracks, but their resolve is firm as mountain stone. They carry the covenant stone, the dream parchment, and the breath of faith. Three treasures, seemingly light yet heavier than hatred. The starry Canaan sky watches silently, as if approving a new page about to be written, not with men's pens, but with the courage of those long obscured. The desert storm hushes. A fragile scent of myrrh drifts through the pages, weaving past dust-covered tents, whispering to each warrior what swords cannot. Life always seeks a path beyond destruction. Where the wind ceases its wail, a new story begins. An opening verse carved into the sand by three humble hearts, defying oblivion and proving that grace often chooses humble vessels to hold its essence. Darkness falls slowly, a sea of stars bursting across the sky, gathering cold silver light on weathered tents. In that silence, each wife recalls her journey to Edom. Ada remembers iron fortresses and the lesson that the strong must know mercy. Oholibama recalls the hidden springs her mother taught her, how soft water carves stone. Basemath remembers a sunset chanting psalms, believing song can erase enmity. Memories weave into the night wind, forming invisible armor to hold them upright when nothingness roars. In the valley, torches from both sides draw a red line. Hittite spears clash, Esau's men grip bows, but three gentle figures step from the lamplight, reminding hundreds of eyes that peace sometimes wears a guise few expect. Night sand falls with a ticking sound, like an hourglass running low, urging them toward destiny's meeting point. The covenant stone, the dream parchment, and the flame of faith, three treasures lighter than swords, yet heavier than hatred, accompany them across the sands, launching a new chapter of history where women will no longer be forgotten. In the final days of the dry season, the Seir Desert erupts in sudden fury. From the horizon's edge, a reddish-brown streak surges, swelling like a colossal beast spewing venomous sand. Winds lash across the goatskin tents, hurling fine dust into daggers that pierce the eyes of the sentries. The late afternoon sun still scalds the skin, but the sandstorm overpowers it, dimming the light into a tarnished bronze that falls over Esau's camp. The entire valley seems swallowed into a searing cavern, where the breath of earth and sky melds into an unrelenting roar. Against this ferocious backdrop, the urgent beat of warning drums rises, signaling that the Hittite army has crossed the final dune and halted just beyond arrow's reach. As the brazen banner of the conquerors casts its shadow through the dust, a bronze-armored messenger strides into the council tent. The storm's tidings merge with war's threat, crystallizing into a chilling ultimatum. Surrender Esau as a sacrifice for old grudges, or let Hittite spears ignite a fire of vengeance to consume the entire tribe. In the cramped tent, thick with the scent of sweat and ash, born of Hittite chieftain blood, rises amid Esau's elders. The silver-embroidered veil across her face trembles with her stifled breath, but her spine holds the steady rhythm of a warrior. A plea for a fair inquiry flows from her heart like water seeking a crack in stone, only to crash against a wall of prejudice. The men's eyes lift, their judgment delivered in a frown heavier than a death sentence. Her defense crumbles in an instant, leaving a humiliated silence that stretches like a lifetime. Leaving the tent, Ada drags her steps past rows of empty camel steaks, tasting the salty grit that breaks upon her lips. Around her, the storm still swirls, strangling tents into distorted shapes, tracing frenzied arcs across a moonless sky. She steps into a sliver of darkness between two leather walls, feeling as if she's fallen into an abyss between two peaks. One her husband, the other her bloodline's roots. The storm's howl blends with the pulse of blood in her ears, stirring memories of her childhood in a Hittite fortress and her oath to protect her new family. The sensation is a double-edged sword, each breath carving another gash into her fraying loyalty. The night deepens, the camp's lamps extinguished, as wind from the rocky slopes rushes through barren grass. Oholibama tosses restlessly on a woolen mat, her heart beating to the wail of the wind like a wild beast's cry. Then abruptly, the sky splits with a blazing red streak, long as a fiery sword. The flash comes without thunder, igniting no low clouds, only glowing with awe-inspiring brilliance before fading. For a fleeting moment, Esau's camp flares like a forest of torches, then plunges back into thick darkness. Oholibama's heartbeat clings to that breathtaking instant, reading it as a supernatural reminder that history can bend in unexpected ways, if only someone dares to believe. Across the camp, footsteps fade, giving way to the quiet warmth of a small oil lamp in the worship corner. Base Math kneels on fine sand, her hands clasped until the knuckles whiten, trapping every wandering thought behind silent lips. In the smoldering scent of burning resin, she envisions the entire camp as a single, giant yet fragile heart, needing a unified pulse to avoid bursting under the enemy's pressure. With each inhale, fear rises like a tide. With each exhale, she pushes trust into the pitch-black void, believing the Almighty can use the seemingly frail to shift the axis of events. The second threat doesn't wait for the storm to subside. At first light, before the sun breaches the hill's rim, the Hittite horns blare like eagles tearing through hide. Rows of iron spears point skyward. Bronze shields bearing eagle emblems catch the dawn's pink glow, reflecting a hazy metallic sheen through the dust. They choose to encamp beside the only oasis, the water as precious as blood in Syria's borderlands. Blocking the water means suspending all life in Esau's camp. A chill grips the hearts of the women still keeping watch, while men hurriedly sharpen swords under the faint firelight cast from stone hearths. Fine dust clings thickly to children's hair, mingling with tears, turning choked sobs into broken breaths. All morning, the camp becomes a taut drum, every small sound echoing twice as loud. The shrill clang of hammer on anvil, the spark-flying thud of mallets, the retreat of livestock to pen corners, all blend into a dirge-like melody. Amid the chaotic noise, Ada feels herself like a stone eroded by two opposing currents. Invisible cracks appear where she thought herself strongest, her marriage vows and her tribal roots. She gazes at the sandy expanse where the enemy's shadows stretch long, suddenly realizing the sandstorm is merely a veil for the tempest raging within human hearts. Each grain slipping through tent seams is a memory of an unsettled past, stirring doubts that history had been written solely by male power, overlooking the soft yet enduring voice of women. Before Ada's eyes, the storm's vortex still spins. Before Aholibama's ears, the wind still howls. Before Basemath's intuition, faith still whispers. Three distinct senses, yet all converge on a single point. The moment of choice draws near. The desert may tear flesh, the enemy may tighten its noose. But if a spark of light emerges from this ash and dust to guide the way, it will be the souls once deemed weak who carry the torch to lead the tribe past vengeance's ultimatum. And through the raging sand, those three hearts begin to beat as one, quietly preparing their response, not with bow or arrow, but with the courage of love bound to justice, strong enough to slip through every crack and blossom into hope. The sere sky drowns in a thick indigo veil, a sliver of moon, thin as scratched silver, slicing across, scattering cold green light over the endless sloping dunes. As the last lamps in Esau's camp flicker out, Ada tightens her dark cloak, slipping past the sentries like a wild shadow born of the desert itself. Sand crunches under her sandal heels, hot dust whipped by the wind coils around her legs, yet it lacks the strength to hold her back. In her ears, memories echo the clash of steel from childhood sword training in the Hittite fortress, the scent of oil polishing blades, her father's breath hissing through gritted teeth as he corrected her stance, his admonition that courage is not the absence of fear, but the miracle born within it. In this moment, those old lessons form a trail of small stones, guiding her to where truth must be spoken. The nighttime desert exudes an eerie stillness, like a vast sea without wind. Each dune Ada crosses shifts shape, like frozen waves poised to roar, stretching the journey beyond imagination. She follows a line of charred wooden posts, Hittite fire signals marking their advance, then traces a ridge of jagged basalt sharp as a beast's teeth. Night's chill begins to seep through her thin cloth, but beneath her chest burns fiercely, her racing heart pumping heat to fuel her steps. When the Hittite outpost fire glints on the horizon, Ada takes a deep breath, stepping beyond her final safe haven, striding straight toward the guard line. The Hittite commander's tent looms in the desert like a temporary fortress on a sea of sand. Ember's glow lights a shield hung at the entrance, reflecting the glinting eyes of sentries in the dark. Ada allows herself no hesitation. From the reins of memory, she pulls images of quiet life in Esau's camp. Dawn treks hauling water from distant wells, nights lulling children to sleep on cold, dry ground, halving her rations to feed the sick elderly. These are not tales of a mighty empire, but an anthem of perseverance, of those who keep ancestral vows despite the cost of hardship. As Ada enters the tent, the scent of tanned leather mingles with roasted meat, painting a scene of invaders resting in stark, choking contrast to the memories she's just revived. Yet instead of shouting, her voice rises low, soft, steady, like water seeping from a rock's crevice. She recounts each sacrifice of her husband's tribe, neither embellishing sorrow nor hiding weariness, letting raw honesty find its way into listeners' minds. The warriors around her, at first smirking, gradually hush, the resilience in her words making their swords and spears feel heavier in their hands. The Hittite commander, renowned as unyielding as sandstone, sits motionless, yet the firelight in his pupils flickers faintly, a tiny crack in his wall of long-standing hatred. Meanwhile, in Esau's camp, Oholibama uses the darkness to spark a silent web of unity. She glides from tent to tent, lightly touching the shoulders of wives, mothers, sisters, forming a hidden constellation under the crescent moon. No trumpets, no loud commands, but news spreads swift as water-soaking sand. All children and strategic supplies must be concealed deep in the eastern caves, where the valley's broken cliffs form a natural stone wall. Each water jar rolled over dry sand is a silent stone. Yet together they become the lifeblood sustaining the tribe if war drags on. They drape goat skins over cave entrances, cunningly masked with dust and scorched grass, transforming the site into a fortress of faith, where wills are honed by hands accustomed to weaving cloth and kneading dough, now architects of survival. Not far off, Basemath kneels before a rough stone altar by the main tent, a small oil lamp casting dancing orange shadows on the pitted rock. Her low, steady hymn of praise weaves into the wind, whistling through tent seams, occasionally swirling with sand to form a deep, resonant hum, like a soundtrack to this sacred moment. Though night piles upon night, Basemath doesn't leave her post. In the fragile crossover between third watch and dawn, she envisions the millions of sand grains around her as untold stories, each bearing a microscopic prayer sent to the eternal. In the calmest moment, when her breath feels light as smoke, a certainty beyond reason flares. The sign of deliverance is already prepared. The task now is to lift the veil for the world to see. She urgently entrusts a swift young man to deliver Oholibama's fire dream parchment to Ada's hands, knowing prophecy must not slumber amid ashes. The messenger races across the early sandfield, where frost's silver hasn't yet melted, weaving through low thorn bushes dripping bitter resin. The journey is wrapped in night's final chill, but in his heart, the flame of a holy tale burns, rooting into each stride. The parchment taps lightly against his chest with every step, a reminder of a mission greater than man's fleeting shadow on earth. Nearing the Hittite camp, he slips along a rocky crevice, pressing the slim bundle into the stunned hands of a sentry, then vanishes into thinning mist, leaving a question hanging in the dawn. In the commander's tent, Ada persists with her steady drip of words, despite the stifling heat of the brazier and probing stares. When the parchment arrives, its red ink script, depicting a divine flame, forms a vivid sketch on dark tanned hide. The Hittite commander gazes at the symbol as if seeing a sandstorm's trident painted as fate. The creases flanking his nose ease for a moment, then tighten. Ancestral legends forbid ignoring a supernatural sign revealed on War's Eve. Yet the hardened general demands final proof, tangible evidence that the ancient covenant lives, not nullified as his advisors claimed. The demand rings out, dry as desert stone, strangling the already taut air. Ada blinks, a pulse of hope stabbing her temple. In her mind, she sees clearly the gray stone, shimmering with smoky quartz veins, buried beneath the small tent where she and Esau once wove dreams of a peaceful era. Carved on its face are twin symbols of deer and dove, the ancestral mark of peace two tribes once sketched, then buried under time's dust, letting hatred sprout easily. The thought races through the long night like a warm current, surging through weary muscles, lifting her chin higher, making her eyes, red from sand and sleeplessness, blaze with a light beyond the brazier's glow. Though Hittite spears stand thick outside, she knows beyond the swirling sand are two women keeping hope's pulse alive. A cave turned into a lifeline's vault. A tribe awaiting dawn with faith, and an ancient stone, the key to a new gate. So instead of despairing at the harsh demand, Ada bows as if in thanks, then rises, her eyes ablaze with resolve. The night's journey isn't over. It has just turned to a new chapter where truth will be carved in stone, no longer whispering in shadows but resounding in daylight, no matter how long the sandstorm roars. The third dawn bathes Seir in a pale light laced with dust, the night's sandstorm still lingering as heat on the desert's face. The early pink streak hasn't yet swept away the darkness when the shallow trenches between the two camps vanish under thick sand, as if an invisible hand erased the tense footprints of the past 2 days. Hittite horsemen, spearheading the advance, charge forward, but their iron hooves halt before the spear barricade Esau and his kin erected through the night. In a breathless pause, the clink of steel freezes midair, leaving space for the morning breeze to sweep up the hillside. The breeze is neither cold nor scorching. It carries the scent of myrrh, a fragrance tied to sacrificial rites, appearing only when mortals beseech the heavens to bear witness. A warrior's coarse senses aren't easily deceived, so when this rare, sacred aroma drifts past bronze spearheads, the air thickens, turning the moment of attack into a moment where fate holds its breath. The Hittite commander yanks his reins, raising a hand to signal, though the cry to charge already rolls to the tip of his tongue. Unbidden, a distant childhood memory surfaces. The priest counsel not to blind himself to divine signs, etched in his mind like bold carvings on an ancient stele. In this lull before the storm, a figure in an earthy brown cloak steps from Esau's defensive line, approaching quietly. It is Basemath, the woman whose heart has kindled faith through nights of howling sand. She clutches the covenant stone to her chest, her breath rapid as war drums. Yet within her resonates a serene melody, the kind only those who've surrendered their lives to faith can hear. The stone's smooth, silver-gray surface glints in the dawn, etched with a deer beside a dove with outstretched wings, a timeless emblem of peace between the tribes. As Basemath sets the stone before the war horse's hooves, the relief from a heroic age suddenly faces the very man who drew his sword to bury it beneath the sand. The light reflecting the deep carvings makes the Hittite commander blink. Years of hardened campaigning cannot erase the memory of seeing that symbol on his clan's stone tablets. The lines match perfectly, like two oyster shells fitting without a gap. In that instant, a low murmur ripples through the Hittite ranks. The shoulders of spearmen sag under a strange conviction, stronger than any trumpet's call. A step away, Ada keeps her hand near her sword's hilt, but her eyes brim with hope, not the kind born of sharp steel, but from a truth so undeniable it cannot be dismissed. As base math steps back, Oholibama leaves the defensive line, her desert cloth robe fluttering like a fledgling's wings leaving the nest. She carries the parchment recording the sacred fire dream from 2 nights prior. Her feet touch the sand lightly, as if walking on waves, yet each stride imprints a resolve harder than iron on the witnesses' minds. Standing silent before both armies, Oholibama raises the parchment, unfurling its red ink script, depicting a strange flame that does not consume. Against the pale purple sky, the day's first sunlight catches the writing, making the deep crimson glow like iron fresh from the forge. As she reads, not aloud but through breaths woven into the wind's rhythm, the earth's pulse surges, then a soft thunder cracks in distant clouds, unaccompanied by lightning, enough to lift hundreds of eyes skyward. The thunder fades, and a vast silence blankets the sandy plain. The Hittite commander seems to hear again the lessons of his youth. The divine does not speak the same truth twice. He slowly lowers his spear, though his hand, hardened by long campaigns, feels wooden. The spearhead sinks into the sand, his knuckles whitening, betraying an inner turmoil his calm exterior masks. The myrrh scent wafts again, like an invisible affirmation. He dismounts, his knees buckling under the coarse sand in an ancient ritual. Though his people no longer kneel on battlefields, in this moment he must do what transcends newly forged laws. The sand scalds, his fingerprints cling to the covenant stone as he traces the carvings, as if fearing his eyes deceive him. The stone's language proves the covenant was never broken. It was merely buried under time's mistrust and distorted tales. This transformation spreads through the Hittite ranks faster than any brass trumpet's call. The frontline soldiers, each gripping shield hafts, feel their chests ease, not from the pressure of attack, but from a reminder of grace. Eyes meet eyes, as if confessing the pretext for wielding swords has shattered under an unassailable truth. Not far off on Esau's line, the spears raised for 2 days lower, their steel tips pointing into the sand instead of at human chests. A new silence seeps through the cracks in the defenses, making way for a sound never heard amid these sands. The relieved sighs of those unwilling to let blood stain the desert of their birth. Rising from his knees, the Hittite commander drapes his dust-reddened armor over his shoulders, his face altered from when he brandished his spear. His deliberate steps carry him to Esau's spear barricade, where Esau struggles to steady his heaving chest. Instead of a cry to spur horses into slaughter, the general voices a contrary decision, birthing a new dawn, an immediate truce paired with an invitation to renew the ancestral covenant on the very stone just unearthed from the darkness of misconception. As the words ring out, the wind exhales softer, as if the vast sandy expanse no longer bears the weight of clashing hatreds. The truce's command races like a red thread through the air, striking the ears of every soldier, every child, every mother huddled behind tattered tent walls. A cheer erupts at Esau's camp's edge, swelling into a wave that rolls down slopes, crests dunes, echoes into the Hittite camp, and rebounds off gray mountains like festival drums. The bronze shields, once fueled by rage, now clang together like broken bells, their tune unfamiliar, joyful yet hesitant, like survivors of a shock still disbelieving the light has truly dawned. On the sandy ground between the lines, three women reach for each other, their fingers roughened by wind and washing, weaving a circle sturdy enough to push war's shadow to the light's edge. From afar, camels' hoarse bellows pull a wild resonance, like bards noting a rare desert anthem into history. The sun climbs slowly, its halo no longer veiled by the dust of looming bloodshed. Golden light stretches over inverted spearheads, turning fearsome steel into radiant flutes. In Basemath's heart, the prayer that rang through the night becomes a drumbeat of hope. To her, the greatest victory isn't yet the restored covenant, but the proof of faith. Silent pleas can shift a nation's course when paired with fearless action. Ada stands beside her, feeling the sword at her hip grow cold, no longer needing to be drawn. Memories of training with her father soften. Those blades were forged to protect, not to nurture grudges. For her, the greatest sandstorm wasn't the whirlwinds threatening to bury tents, but the tempest of prejudice threatening to tear the future apart. Now, in this new era, she learns her warrior father's final lesson. The highest courage is to lower weapons when the moment calls every blade back to its sheath. In Oholibama, the source of the sacred fire vision, turns her face to the darkening sky, where the last night clouds flee from the sun's pursuit. Her heart holds a map of hidden spring, half real, half-dreamed winds, and flocks of birds pointing vaguely across the heavens. Now that map gains a new red line, a border once steeped in hatred, renamed harmony. She knows dreams aren't just warnings, they're lanterns illuminating the past, so the brave can see a night's flash not as a curse, but as hope's knock, awaiting an answer. At the camp's edges, Hittite and Esau soldiers plant peace flags, replacing brash colors of demand with humbler hues, signaling to distant travelers that this perilous land no longer rings with swords. The sand covering the trenches isn't dug up. It becomes a symbol, the erasure of 2 days' deep scars, letting the desert continue its tale, this time in the gentle voice of breeze and faint myrrh. The scent lingers, blending into the sunlight, forming an invisible dome over those who once faced each other with steel. Beneath that dome, the three women still hold hands. They need no greater miracle, for this moment surpasses imagination. An ancient stone, a nighttime vision, and a trusting heart. Three pieces forming the key to unchained war. The desert exhales its final gasp from the struggle, reclaiming the soft pink of a true dawn, untainted by the hue of blood about to spill. And from that light's edge, the story of women once hidden rises like an unquenchable pillar of fire, guiding generations to come. That courage, wisdom, and faith, when united, can redirect a nation, even in a land meant only for swords and sandstorms. The sire sun barely rises, the mountain ranges outline slowly soaking in honeyed hues, brushing fine golden streaks across sands still damp with night's breath. In that dawning light, three women's silhouettes advance slowly to the edge of Esau's camp, letting the warmth of morning crawl along their wind-worn sleeves. They stand side by side, one the spark of courage, one the keeper of vision, one the carver of faith, blending into a living symbol that God's hand still deftly weaves invisible threads through those deemed smallest. Once their names rested curtly in a few cold lines of genealogy. Now the tribe's memory etches Ada Oholibama, and Bezimath as pillars of grace, upholding the soul's canopy for a nation just spared from destruction's grip. As the last chariot's dust dissolves into the morning glow, the valley settles into a hopeful hush. From the Hittite camp in the north to the Edom village in the south, people gather around a newly raised granite block, its polished surface split by an ancient carving. One side bears a deer, emblem of gentle strength, the other a dove with spread wings, embodiment of peace finding perch amid storms. This etching doesn't merely mark the day the covenant was renewed. It's a persistent reminder to generations unborn. Force may draw boundaries, but only courage laced with wisdom can break hatred's chains, clearing a path for a future that truly takes root. With the monument complete, the elders of both sides step back, yielding to the three women to place their hands on the carving's deepest groove. In that moment, the parched desert itself seems to hold its breath. All Ser hears the spelling of healing, sand grains ticking, fledglings chirping, a breeze swirling through the open plain, carrying the lingering myrrh from last night's peace-offering fire. Colors once hidden under the dust of conflict now shine vividly. The sun's gold, the sand's red-brown, the sky's pale blue, and the silver glint in tearful, joyful eyes, all merge into a palette that comforts those who once counted heartbeats awaiting a spear's plunge. Alongside this scene, the tale of the three women's journey spreads swiftly, like an underground stream, seeping into shepherds' ears, flooding smiths' forges, racing through spice markets. People speak of Ada striding through the darkest sandstorm of loyalty, of a holy Bama reading fire cloud signs in the sky when none would listen, of Basemouth keeping faith's lamp burning through long vigils, ultimately lighting a path for both sides to return to the old covenant. The story becomes a mirror reflecting into every family's memory, from the grandmother who once cooked for soldiers to the boy just learning to draw a bow. Each sees themselves standing somewhere among those three chords of grace. This current of memory doesn't halt at narrow borders, crossing deserts, passing pilgrimage routes. The rumor reaches coastal lands, then translates into parchment scraps traded by Mediterranean merchants. The revival of an ancient covenant through three nameless women kindles faith that anyone, whether their name is cast in bronze or scrawled on a broken loaf, holds a piece of heaven's plan. This thought knocks on hearts in distant ports, reminding them destiny doesn't choose the loudest, but those ready to lift justice's burden with humble hands. From a generational lens, the story is a microscope magnifying the value of a steadfast heart in any setting. Scripture records no shortage of war gods and sages, yet in the gaps between those masculine chronicles pulse women's veins, quiet but ceaselessly pushing life beyond yesterday. As Ser's tale reaches our ears today, it urges listeners, especially souls who've deemed themselves small, to rise decisively and plant the flag of righteousness, though the storm of public opinion roars. The path these three women blazed isn't cushioned with velvet. It's strewn with dry sand, hot stones, and skeptical glances. Yet their brave feet left traceable marks. When walking in faith, each footprint in sand may vanish swiftly, but the myrrh of action clings to humanity's memory longer than any stone. That is the key to pulling darkness from its corners. Faith paired with justice, rooted strong as a tree-piercing rock. No night is eternal before a heart yearning to uphold truth. No silence is final when resolve's flame still burns in the chest. Whenever the world leans towards shoving women's stories to the table's edge, Seer's stone reminds us to look at the deer and dove. To see peace's promise forever needs soft questioning hearts, soft answering wisdom, and courage charting the way for the crowd to follow. The dawn's final stretch unfurls, the women's shadows spilling across the sand in 3 fanning arcs toward the west, converging, then fading. The image gifts the new day a wordless proclamation. They don't vie for the spotlight, nor push each other to the light's rim. They stand shoulder to shoulder. This humble harmony is the bedrock of every lasting victory. No one must shine alone. All illumine a shared path called grace. So Sire's gift doesn't rest in ancient libraries alone. Today, in our digital journey, we preserve this legacy by hitting share for a friend across state lines, typing a comment to nurture positive dialogue, or simply clicking subscribe to catch the next frames narrating women kindling fires along Scripture's road. Each interaction you offer is a seed sown in the community's memory garden, sprouting reminders that God still works through the smallest acts of kindness. Thank you for joining this faith journey from Seer's desert to the screen where you sit. May fresh blessings pour into your soul, bringing the peace and courage needed to star in your era's story of justice. Next week, the channel will guide you through lesser open Bible pages, meeting another woman who sparked great change though her name nearly faded. Keep your flame of curiosity ablaze, for the quest for grace has only just begun.